Sumeena, welcome to the Power Within You podcast. It's so lovely to have my old friend from back home here with me today.
I
How are
know,
you?
it's really well. By old, you mean like 30 years almost, which is
Maybe years.
crazy.
Let's say
Yeah,
how many years?
for reference, we met when we were in school. No, we actually met in college, which is, the late teens. So that's just so many
Yeah, that
years.
was more exciting though. I think you're sort of more social, you have more
Yeah,
social skills, maybe back
yeah.
then,
We
possibly.
also went through a lot together, actually, and I wonder if some of that will come out in this episode, but we've been through so many
Yes.
journeys together over the
Yeah,
years.
100%, 100%. But I'm so happy to have you here with me because I think, out of people that I respect and love, you are one of the most inspirational of
Oh,
all, basically, of what you've achieved.
thank
And,
you.
and I'd love to speak about your journey today as well and the impacts that it had on you, both positively and perhaps negatively as well. But
Yeah.
I'd like to kind of kick off with, so you're based in Bali now.
hmm
I'd like to really, like coming from, Northwest London and then, creating this, first business in the Gili Islands. Um, I really love to hear like how you came from, that point to, creating that business for yourself.
Yeah, so just for reference, I'm born in Northwest London. I'm British Asian. My parents were immigrants, as were yours, Mamta. And I was born and brought up in like a part of town where you ended up just doing what everyone else does, which I think, Mamta, you also relate to because very similar area that we grow up in. People didn't come up with new ideas. It wasn't very interesting or ambitious. And so I did the usual thing, got my grades, went to uni, got good grades at uni, got a very good job in corporate, party life, got married, bought my house. And like many people, I watched The Matrix in my early 20s. Many
As a
people from
brilliant
our
film, brilliant
generation,
film.
yeah. And I think that sowed a seed, but I mean, beyond that, it was very obvious from a very early age, which I know you and I spoke a lot about as we were growing up, where we didn't resonate with the way people were doing things and the way that things were being managed, I guess, by our families and people around us. And so, always from an early age, for some reason, I had this feeling that things weren't right. Like, that's not the way. That can't be the only way. That isn't what I'm going to do. And so, I don't know where that came from. I
Mm,
honestly don't. Maybe it was, well, I've done a talk about this where I talk about the influences of the women in my family. So, our
yeah.
ancestors, I believe we learn things from them, sometimes positively and sometimes actually negatively as well, where we see things that
Mm,
we don't want for
mm,
ourselves and our own future generations. And
mhm,
one of my favorite lines is to be a good ancestor and not a good descendant. And I only
mm,
put words to that recently, and Adam Grant had a big part to play in me putting language to that.
mm,
But in the past, it was always like, that can't be right. That can't be the only way. There has to be another way.
yeah.
So, long story short, went traveling in my 20s, late 20s, around the world, decided to take sabbatical and go traveling with my husband and realized that we had an opportunity on a desert island in Indonesia. For those who don't know, it's near Bali, it's called Gili Trawangan, and leaned into this idea of if not now, when,
Mm,
which I speak about a lot, which is like, hey, if you don't do this now, and it did feel like a crossroad. It really was like,
mm,
if we don't do something now, something interesting and disruptive, we are going to fall back into the old life, which was
mm.
not fulfilling us anymore.
But it's such
And
a
we,
massive risk though to take, isn't it?
yeah,
Like it's quite who did that at that age? 20 years or more than 20 years ago.
29. Yeah, I
20
was
years
29.
ago. I mean,
I was 29 at the time. And yeah, we didn't have any examples. We didn't
no,
have
this is what I'm
anyone.
saying. You had no example of that. You obviously have to
Yeah,
go with your own gut instinct, right? And you're both
yeah.
you together, obviously on the same page, you
Yeah, what
know.
same page? I would say that the examples we had to look for were outside of our family and immediate circle. So now
Right.
I know this because I teach this, but it's look for evidence that what's possible, not what isn't possible.
Mm,
So if someone's watching thinking, oh my God, how do I expand what's possible for me? Get in places where people are doing things where you feel this little bit of inkling like, ooh, that's interesting. I wonder how they're doing that.
mm,
And when you
mm,
start looking for people who are achieving what you want to achieve and you start finding evidence, you start to realize that, oh, if they can do it, I can do it. I just have
mm,
to figure out the next steps. And so when we're always with the same what we can call the same echo chamber, where we're only seeing what we see and what we hear. We don't see the possibility. So our travel around the world opened our eyes to possibility. We saw so many people doing so many fun things in different parts of the world. Like, hold on, if these normal human beings can do it, why can't we? We'd never seen that before. We'd been in this echo chamber of like achievement, follow the ladder, Asian way of doing things. And now we're like, hold on. And so that gave us that kind of risk appetite, which we really tuned into and really decided within ourselves that what's the worst that could happen.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Well, that is just, I mean, and we were always so scared to kind of go down that route because, like you said, growing up, that wasn't really open to us. There was like certain careers that were open to us, right? And that was like the big corporates or doctor, dentist, accountant, lawyer, the standard, that stuff. Yeah. But when I listened to your amazing FabX talk that you did in Bali recently, obviously I know your background, but I didn't realize what an impact, that growing up in the way that you did, sort of prevented you from being yourself and going out and that sort of stuff. Tell me more about that. Tell me more about your experiences, that the obstacle to kind of push forwards,
Yeah. So FabX is a platform that we have here in Indonesia where people who are wanting to be influencers or have voices or have a story to share, it's like a TEDx with soul. That's what it's called. So it's people who really want to share a story, but it's really coming from their heart and it's their world-changing wisdom or something they really want to leave behind, like an imprint. So my FabX talk was very much influenced by how the women in my family, my female ancestors, paved the path for me to be here today, be who I am right now, right? To actually unleash the power within me, referencing back to your podcast. Yeah. And when I was growing up, I didn't see it. I always had anger towards, why weren't they stronger? Why didn't they give us more hope? Why didn't they give us support? Why did we always have to fight the system? Like I had a lot of anger towards a lot of people. And then it was only when I started to grow up and actually probably when I became a mother myself, that I realized some of their choices were to actually give me the choices that I had later on. The choice to actually be financially secure, the choice to actually go traveling, the choice to have money in my bank so I could invest in a business in a different country, which now has led to generational change with the way my children are growing up and with the work that I'm doing. But it was I had to go through that, and it was these women in my family, these ancestors from generations back who made choice after choice after choice that led to my choices and my opportunities today. So we've heard the term, like we stand on the shoulder of giants, and that's essentially where this is from. Like these women had to make their choices to be safe and to survive. And we now as a generation often can benefit from those choices, or we get to make those choices ourselves for the next generations.
Absolutely. It's kind of fighting free, isn't it, as well? Like, it's making a choice to be able to follow your values, follow your beliefs, follow your joy, follow your inspiration. But often we just get stuck in the same rut. We don't move out of that, right? And I guess we see that a lot as well. And that hasn't really shifted so much. I think it is now with the sort of younger generations that they've got side hustles, they're doing different things. They want to have value in their life as well. But it does, it's not. But even though it's not an easy journey to be an entrepreneur either, to create your own businesses and, be up against that. So what kind of challenges did you come across as you were growing your businesses?
Yeah, well, I would say I don't know if you know the hero's journey or if people don't know, I would look it up. It's just or the heroine's journey, which is also more accurate. But so you're almost going through that journey every day. Like, always going through your trials and tribulations, always going through the next version of yourself. Or even if you think about self-development, you're always learning something. So I love entrepreneurship. It's definitely in my blood and not necessarily inherited, but I just know it's in there. And I think Asians in general, we often have an entrepreneurial spirit. And at the age of 16, I knew I would have my own business. It's like, it's going to happen.
Really? That's amazing.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I took business studies. I think I was 14. I took business studies at school. And I was like, I'm just going to have my own business. I had no idea. I was like, how am I going to do this? I don't know anything about it. So yeah, when we became entrepreneurs, it was this Obviously I had kids at the same time. I've had 3 kids during it. I was married. We were in a foreign country, a very male-dominated country, and so there's so many challenges. And we actually entered an industry we knew nothing about. We went to hospitality from being in corporates and helping with IT projects. So from IT to hospitality, but it was this idea that you can just figure it out. Right? And it's such a simple idea, but when you decide that this is it, this is plan A, and I talk about this a lot with my clients, I'm like, if you decide this is it, plan A, there's no plan B, you just figure it out, right?
Yeah.
You'll mess up, you'll fail, something will go wrong, it's going to feel hard, but you will just figure it out. You're like, well, what can I do now? What can I do now? And like, just really lean into curiosity and just decide, right? Decide ahead of time. This is going to have to work.
Absolutely. And I think that also, it's one of those things where you have to be willing to take the risk to put yourself outside that comfort zone as well, like to be able to, the sun's coming into the room.
Yeah, I love it.
Rising.
I love it. Good for you.
But like some people don't take those risks. Like what is it, what's the drive when you take that risk? Like what was the driver? Like you knew you were 16, and actually looking at your wider family, there's some entrepreneurs in there as well. Very successful people, right? Yeah. Well, it must be in your blood somehow.
Yeah, and actually, I didn't appreciate this at the time, but I suspect that just knowing that, for example, my parents were immigrants. My dad was 14 when he came to England and had to start a brand new life. There's nothing more risky than leaving your country and your own life to go to another country and go, okay, I'm going to figure this out. And think about all those people that I was growing up with, and I know you and Mamta in the era that we grew up, that have a first generation, they've taken literally taken the boat and come to another country and like, how do we make this work? And watching them, various versions of them do such amazing things with so little security, I think it's probably a little bit inherent in us to be a little bit risk-taking. So I didn't appreciate that till later, maybe not even till like into my 30s. But obviously the seed was sown that you do these things, you do these like really things that you don't know how they're going to work out, and you just figure them out as you go along. Absolutely. So that I feel is a key trait for any successful entrepreneur. It's just like, I'll figure it out as I go along. Like I'll just work it out.
It's just amazing. I mean, you did it in a whole new place. You didn't even know the country that well. Like is amazing. And from that point onwards, you created successful businesses, not just there but in Bali as well. I'm just going to put the blind down a little bit, but I want to talk about your sort of journey around your sort of mental health as well, and your well-being around that, because even though it's a challenge sort of, financially, I'm sure, being able to like think about complex problems and stuff, how did it kind of affect you as a person trying to build up these businesses?
Yeah, it's really, really key point to tune into mental health, because I talk often about 3 pillars to any success. And one of them is emotional regulation or managing your emotions. So, emotions are just energy in motion. So just tuning into that. And the second would be mindset. And the third and last, I would say, strategy. Like people think business is strategy. Like, what am I doing? What's the plan? What am I up to? But that comes last, I feel, once you've learned how to emotionally regulate yourself or manage your emotions and really tune into your mindset and get into the mindset of being a success and knowing that you can survive anything. So the things that I went through, there was a rocky road. I'll be frank, right? To be really frank, it's a rocky road, and some ways you have to go through it. Right? I work with clients now, and I help them build their businesses, and I tell them that you have to go through some of this. Like I can't save you from it. It's part of the growth. It's part of becoming who you need to be. And one of my favorite things to share is that the things you do and the goals you aim for in the business you build is not the aim. The aim is who you become on that journey.
Sure.
That's the
very
aim.
True. It's very true.
When at the end of like a hard time or something going wrong, so for example, we've been through earthquakes and the pandemic and all these things which really impacted our business, and we got through it, but it's who we became at the other side of that really is the goal. So some of my tools, I did go through a burnout, I'll be honest, and in that burnout I wanted to sell my business, divorce my husband, couldn't be a good mother for my kids. It was really hard. And I learned then that nothing is worth it if you don't have your own mental health. To be honest, I had to hit that rock bottom to realize that.
Wow. I mean, and also, it's not just you and your husband growing businesses, as having 3 kids as well, right? During that time as well. So I can imagine that's a lot to, to be responsible for, and to manage yourself at the same time. How did the burnout manifest? Like, what was it? What were the symptoms of burnout for you?
Yeah, it's a good question, because often we don't know that we're in burnout, and I didn't, I'll be honest, until I really realized that I'd hit a wall. And why am I feeling, I'm on a desert island building a dream business, and every day people telling me that this is a dream, this is amazing, and then here's me going, I just want to go back to England and hide under my bed and just not have any of this. Then you realize that something's not right. How it manifests is that, like, wanting to run away, not wanting to can't see the good in what you're doing. You're always looking at the hard and the negative. Obviously, that continuous feeling of exhaustion, because your nervous system is constantly activated. You're just burning on adrenal energy, and you're not resting properly. You're not eating properly. Health is taking a toll. Relationships are not going well. Relationships that were really fruitful suddenly start falling apart. You don't want to do things that are fun or good for you. You don't want to exercise. You don't want to eat well. You just want to often it manifests as numbing. Like drinking too much, watching too much TV, shopping too much, even exercising too much, like too many, being in the too much is often like that overactivation.
Absolutely.
So having not been educated on any of that, because I didn't know about the self-development world back then or any of this, it was really just knowing that this wasn't me. Just not feeling like this is not you. Now I know that the core of burnout is a feeling of resentment. Like feeling resentful about things, which then starts to manifest in different ways, in anger and frustration and all of these things. But at the time, I didn't realize that I was just doing too much, putting too much pressure on myself, not allowing myself to be supported by my team and by other people, not allowing myself to be supported by my husband, not hiring the help I needed in my family, like nannies or whatever I needed at the time. Just doing too much. And that was old conditioning from trying to be a success all the time, trying to push through, trying to, be productive, get the best grades, coming into my new world.
It transfers, isn't it? It's just transference on that.
It stays with you. It stays wherever you are. It's that thing, like, wherever really you go, there you are.
No, it's so true that you just don't realise that. How did you pull yourself out of that burnout? Like, what was the shift that you made to actually start getting yourself out of that journey?
Yeah, it's a great question, because honestly, now I look back and I'm like, thank God I didn't give it all up, because we're thriving, and it's like I would have left all of this behind. And how do we get out of it? I think, when you realise that there's these sparks, and maybe it was probably my partner, like, reflecting back, that you're not yourself. Right? So that sometimes just letting that information in. So can't quite pinpoint exactly when it was, but probably when I realized, like, this is not me. I'm so far away from who I want to be and who I usually am. And it probably took 6 to 12 months for that to happen. But just going, this is not me. And then one by one, slowly but surely, healing the different things that needed to be healed, so that I could get back to feeling like, okay, this is who I want to be.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it's not easy.
Yeah, it's not easy.
You have to unlearn a lot.
We don't, because I was speaking about mental fitness in my webinar yesterday, but and Mate,
yay, love him.
We spoke about him before, The Wisdom of Trauma, his books around that, and his book and his film. And I've got that The Myth of Normal here as well, and I've been like sort of trying to get stuff out of that to kind of talk about as well. But
my favorite is When the Body Says No. The best.
That's brilliant. So good.
Gabor.
So good. We'll talk about that. But he was talking about self-inquiry, about like thinking about doing this exercise where you ask yourself questions every week, and that includes things like what bodily signs am I ignoring that I should be acknowledging that's affecting my mental health, or what am I saying yes to that I actually want to say no to, And I think about your anger and repressed anger and how that affects your mental health as well. And it is that, isn't it? We have like a rash, or we get digestive problems, and we're like, just something at 8 or whatever.
That's
it is.
right.
But actually, it's so much more deeper than that.
Totally. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to be self-aware, but I love the fact that so I talk about self-coaching, and I guide my clients to self-coach themselves at least weekly. And it's also a little bit like journaling that people talk about, like journaling daily. Because when you start to see your thoughts come through, you realize that, oh my gosh, this is not me. This is not who I want to be.
Yeah.
And then you can obviously dig deeper and get this. And I'm an advocate for support. I'm an advocate for therapy, an advocate for coaching, mentoring, what you need. Now I am. I didn't know that at the time, but now I am, because I see the power of that. And any one of your listeners who knows that they want to live a fully expressed life, right? They want to do these things. They want to put themselves in the lion's den. Like, we're crazy. Like, we're in the arena, right? We're in the arena. There's so many easier ways to live life, but we choose not to. So when you make those choices, you have to surround yourself with the support, whatever that is.
It's so true. And then actually, so many of my clients who I coach, whether they're in corporates or they're one-to-ones, so many of them are in therapy as well. They have like double support, right? So they're in therapy, they have coaching, they do their own self-development, they read, they do everything they can to help themselves, basically, because they know that they've gone through something, that they need to deal with. And sometimes you need extra support to deal with it, right? As well. Like everyone needs a coach, everyone needs a therapist, everyone needs a nutritional 100%. Therapist.
100%. We're not born with all these skills. Like, why don't we just go to all the specialists? And, if you think about the old days, the kings and the queens had their console, they had their hand. Everyone was surrounded by support. But here we are thinking that we can do everything ourselves. It's a surefire way to burn out.
But the thing is, and I say this a lot, and it's one of my, I really want to be able to be part of changing this, is that they don't teach it in schools.
No.
We get taught about emotions in schools. We get taught about how to do stuff in school. And so as people and as parents, or as generally trying to raise other kids or our own kids, it's it's, if we don't know ourselves about the human experience, how are we going to help our kids do that as well? All the generations.
Such an important point, because you think about schooling systems, and I'm talking about traditional schooling systems where you have exams and it's very singular. It's very focused on you and your grades and how you do things, and often it's almost shunned if you try to get tuition or extra help. And so, telling a short story, my daughter was talking about school and how her grades were not necessarily what she wanted them to be. And we got her a tutor, and she felt embarrassed about that. And we had to let her know that it's fine. There's a person here who can help you really upskill yourself. Why wouldn't you take it? And then she could get on board. But there was that almost internalized shame, oh my God, I'm not good enough. I need help. I need to ask someone for support. It's no, not at all. This is how we get better. Think about all the sports stars who have coaches.
Absolutely. Athletes have been doing this for a long time, right? Athletes have been getting coaches, they practice visualization, they practice all sorts of stuff that help them get to the sort of end result that they need. Basically, so as just general, I think we all need to be able to practice it and what it means as well. And I think it's changing now, but I think it's so much work and awareness to be done. And my joy comes from helping other people, and I know yours does too.
Exactly,
right? It's amazing to see the power you can give someone else to fulfill their potential is incredible as well. Yeah. And that kind of takes me on to even though being successful, having these amazing businesses, there was something missing, no, for you. There was something there. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so, sometimes I'm why am I so ungrateful? Always looking for something. But I've since learned that this is a thing. So this is, I don't know if you've heard of the dark nights of your soul, or the dark night of your soul is this reference to a lot of successful women who have found success, but maybe by being too much in their masculine, and they've achieved a lot and they're doing really well, they're at the top of their game, but then suddenly there feels this internal disconnect, or this feeling that there's no fulfillment, because ultimately we've subscribed to other people's version of success and we haven't tuned into what our own is. So although I loved my business, we're on a beautiful desert island running resorts and dive shops and having lots of fun, this call to have an impact really tugged at my soul, and it manifested as me feeling really unhappy initially and unfulfilled. It's is this it? And I'm grateful for what I had. I had beautiful, healthy kids, had a really beautiful husband and relationship, and I was is this it? At 42, what happens next? And I've since learned that, you know, women in human design, women reach their potential at 50, and that's when they're the wisest.
Get in there.
They're getting there.
Not far to go.
And then if you think about like our ancestors, you know, thousands of years ago, the wise older women and men of the tribe would pass down their wisdom. So there's almost like an innate natural calling for us as we get older to want to contribute and share. And that was what's happening to me. So I went on my journey of getting my own coach and then realizing what I could do and moving into a place where I still have my businesses and they're still running and I'm doing something so fulfilling and makes me feel like I have purpose and the reason that I'm here.
Absolutely.
Just know that I've tuned into that. And I think that's what you're referencing when you go through that journey of what is it and then realizing there's something.
And you do actually feel there's something missing. Like, you know, I was the same sort of thing. I was working in tech. I was earning good money, you know, everything was going well, but I was just like, is this it? Like, is this what? Where's the value? What am I providing to another human being? You know, I think I found that slightly in management or leading people because I was caring about them and hopefully giving them some sort of value. But besides that, I wasn't really feeling anything else because all my time was taken up by that job, if that makes sense, 9 to 5.
When was that? How many years ago was that? I kind of remember it.
I did a 180 in my career in 2017.
Yeah, so that's 5 years.
Yeah, nearly, 5 years ago, 6 years this year.
6 years.
But crazily, right, I looked into being a coach since my 20s. Like every single time. I think it was the Coaching Academy, that website would come into me every single year, every 6 months I would look into being a coach. I was like, well, I don't know if people did coaching, and that's just like 20 years ago, right? But I knew that it's something I wanted to maybe explore. And I think when I got coached myself, then I realized I was like, this is amazing.
Yeah,
you know,
amazing.
Amazing coach, right? And I just all these things I was learning about myself. And I had therapy before as well. So I was having therapy at the same time, but that was just dealing with other stuff. It was dealing with my childhood, my program behaviors, my habits. But this is like looking forwards, like what's self-limiting beliefs, what's, you know, and I think because of that, it was like, then I knew that was my calling, right? I just knew that's what I wanted to be and do and give this to other people as well.
Amazing. Well, my coaching teacher, Tyron, who runs the school that I got trained with, the Mind Rebel Academy, she always says coaching is a calling. And I work with coaches and I help them build their businesses, and most will tell me that they have been unofficially coaching for most of their lives.
Yes.
Like most coaches have been doing it in some way, either as a leader or a team leader, as a nice friend, as a parent, somehow, unofficially, all their lives anyway. So, and then anyone who's listening thinking, I kind of like my work, it's already really fulfilling, but there's something else. Give a bit of space to that feeling of there's something else, because I also loved my work. And I also felt a lot of satisfaction, Mamta, from like having loads of people working for me that I was helping and financially contributing to. I loved speaking to my guests and getting them a great experience. And, you know, so I felt fulfillment from that. And there was still this inkling that I wanted to ignore because it felt like I was being ungrateful. But actually, when I explored it, my life boomed, like unbelievably. In the last 4 years, what I feel I've been able to achieve, because it's a calling and it's just who you're meant to be, it feels on purpose. There's no resistance from you and the universe. The universe, right?
Exactly.
It helps you out.
100%, because you're saying what you want and there's no resistance to it. And so you're doing your and that's the other thing, right? It's about being able to tune in to your authentic self. The authentic empowerment that you have for yourself is truly like, it's so powerful. I think when you know what that is and you know what that means for you as well. And I think often we base our lives on what other people want from us.
Society.
What we need to be, right? What we have to be, what we expect to be, but we don't know what it's stuff that we need to be inside, you know? It's just, it's a journey for sure. And, you know, it's an incredible one. If you're
I love that you said resistance, because it's a bit like pushing a boulder up a hill, right? If it's something you don't want to do or isn't resonating or feels really hard, it's obviously going to flow a lot less than if it's just like a downhill flow and you know this is it. And like you said, if you're authentic self, you're often not going to feel this is wrong. Am I doing it right? This is bad. What if people say blah, blah, blah. When you're in alignment with what it is that you know you want to do, or you're finding that, you might not know straight away, but you're working towards something, you're just like, I'm just going to do it all. I don't care. I don't care what people say. This is
Absolutely.
it. So talking back my FabX talk, I had a lot of resistance sharing that story because of what my family might think, what other people might think. But it felt so true that I had to say it. That I just worked through it. I let it all go. And I was like, whatever happens, happens. This is
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's so true. Who have been like the influences? Like you have a coach as well, but obviously you do a lot of reading and you explore a lot. You do your own self-development and that sort of stuff as well.
Yeah.
Who have been the sort of key, whether they're public or not, like who have been the sort of key change makers for you to kind of be where you are today?
Yeah, I love that question because you almost want to say someone's celeb, but for me, honestly, it's like the everyday person I meet who has not let their past determine their future. I really love hearing their stories, and it could be someone famous, it could be someone who's written a book, it could be for that reason biographies are so powerful, or documentaries. But generally, even in my day to day, if I've met like I said, we went traveling and we met all these people. I'm like, they inspired me. I'm like, wow, this person lived in blah de blah and did X, Y, and Z and has ended up doing this. Like, wow, they didn't let that determine. And so I'm always really intrigued and inspired daily by the humans that we're around. Like, and I live in Indonesia. There's a lot of poverty and a lot of different circumstances. And then I see people step out of that and create different things. And I'm like, wow, that's amazing.
Incredible.
So yes, there's of the obvious people that we hear about and see, and then there's the everyday person.
Yeah, 100%.
Really
I think it's that it influences you the most, isn't it? The people that are around you and that you see day to day. I think that's the beauty of traveling as well, isn't it? Like
totally,
travel,
100%.
Your consciousness widens and you learn so much more. Like your experiences widen as well.
Yeah, even things like, and I know this is funny, but even things like climbing up the Himalayas or trekking or going to Machu Picchu. I love Machu Picchu. It's a spiritual home for me. And I think about the Incas. I'm like, how did they build this?
Yeah, it's amazing.
How cool is that?
Isn't it?
And then you climb the Himalayas and you see these, like, either someone who's really old or someone who has a disability or someone in a different, like, how are they doing that? Who am I to complain and have all of these advantages when there's these people doing these amazing things? So I agree, travel just blows your mind.
It really does.
Possible.
And now, like, you're focusing, obviously you have your businesses, but you're focusing on coaching. Is it specifically other women who want to be entrepreneurs?
Yeah, so I coach women because my mission to fulfill my own mission and purpose, which is to flow more wealth into the hands of women. Like
Beautiful.
Everything I do centers on that. It's like, how can women feel more wealthy? And to me, that's just a way of feeling more well-resourced.
Absolutely.
Because when you have financial wealth and abundance, you can also have time abundance. You can also have energy abundance, right? You can get help, you can look after yourself, you can afford self-care, you can do so many things. So it's at the center of it is being well-resourced as a woman. And to do that, I help women create wealth, like flow more wealth into the hands of women.
And that should so be the case as well. So that's a deep mission that you have. So do you see a pattern of, any sort of self-limiting beliefs that women have to fulfill their purpose and create that wealth themselves?
Yeah, I would say the women that are drawn to working with me and I end up really helping really shift things. And I'm talking about having never sold anything to selling a $5,000 offer, having never really coached to having group programs, real significant changes. At the core is that they've always been trying to suppress their too muchness. They've always been like in environments or have been told that they're too much. And having, I've got 2 young daughters and I see already how that's happening to them. And so almost regularly, one's 12 and one's 10, and already I can see in the culture they're in. And we're here in Bali where people are open-minded, but still, right, that need to dim to fit in. And so one thing I share with them is like, don't dim to fit in. But that's hard because you put yourself up for criticism. You put yourself up for like standing out from the crowd and maybe being shunned out of the village, right? Like think about our ancestors. You want to fit in. So I would say at the core, a lot of these women is this feeling that they're too much. And when they allow that, unleash that, when they're like, hold on, my too muchness is actually a good thing. It's a superpower. It's one of my amazing traits. How can I be okay with it? And then we work on that. How can they integrate it? How can they be okay with it? How can they feel safe in it? Then they do amazing, unbelievable things that they didn't think was possible.
And men do it all the time. They put themselves out there all the time. It's like, you go to any sort of podcast, any sort of well-known podcast, you know, it's generally the white male and middle-aged, you know, and
it's gender.
Being other white male middle-aged as well, right? And because they're putting themselves out there, right? Good for them that they've got that success.
Yeah,
absolutely. But I think, you know, it's kind of for women now to rise up and also show the world what they're made of, right? As well.
Yeah, and I, you know, how many men would say like I'm too much? I'm pretty sure not many. Whereas, like, what does that even mean? Like, how could you be too much? And it's society who's defining that too muchness. Yeah. And I'm the first to raise my hand and say it's really hard. Like on my social media, on my platforms, I share things that I feel edgy about, and sometimes I'm like, is this going to be too much? And then I have to remind myself that by whose standards? Right, like who's defining that? And if I don't do it, how can I help other people do it? So that allows me to keep showing up and like pushing my own edges in a way that feels comfortable. And this is where we want to bring our nervous system. This is where we want the peer support. We want to have therapy, like whoever we need, but don't stop. This is one thing I always say: get the support you need, but don't stop, because that's how we change things. That's how we change generations.
Absolutely.
So, there's no such thing.
So inspiring. I love that.
We need more of it.
Yeah, we really do. We really do. What is like the next? I mean, like, you know, you said that, and I love that you said that about reaching. You know, when you reach 50, then you know that's it. You're in a roll. It's all gonna. And I love that. Okay, bring it on, and you get menopause as well if you're a woman. It's okay. You can see yourself through that. But what do you feel is the next? Like, what's your future hold for you?
Yeah, I really want to be on stages and just get out there and have a louder voice in places that need to hear it. So not just be on any old stage, or, you know, it has to be in alignment with, again, with my mission. If I'm going to pour my energy into something, it's got to fulfill that.
Absolutely.
Into the hands of women. So I would love to find my feet to amplify that further. And I'm already doing that. I'm already like the FabX and being training in my public speaking, things like that. But to me, what I'm doing is a good thing. Like, why would I stop? And I need to do more of it. So however that manifests, whether it's through stages, whether it's through books, whether it's through media, who knows, or even, honestly, even if it's just one woman at a time, one human at a time, I feel so okay with however it shows up, as long as I'm doing it.
That's true happiness, man. That's true happiness there, right?
Yeah.
Like you're going with it, but it feels like you're just living happily, you know, day to day. You're in enjoy day to day, which is the most important thing in the world, really.
Day to day, yeah. It's really, I mean, I love my kids and I love all those things and I enjoy it. And if that's all I was doing, I'd be like, what else? So, and then because I teach about financial, you know, being financially smart and financially aware, I don't do it all for free, but I do a lot for free. And I'm happy with that.
Well, that's the thing. That's why I love giving back as well, right? Yeah. Like being able to coach for free, being able to do the webinars that I do. So every time I learn something new, I want to put it out there, basically, as well, right? Other people to learn as well. But I think you're right. It's kind of like being able to just follow your truth, follow your joy, follow your authentic self, and everything will fall into place.
Yeah, and that's not easy. I just want to caveat, like, you and I have been on this journey for many years, and that's why we can say this. But if someone's listening and they're thinking, what? How do I do that? Just start the journey. Right? And it might be as simple as starting to journal or speaking to other people or getting into communities that are already doing that, listening to your podcast, listening to the other people's podcasts, something that starts to get the mind ticking about what's possible. Because sometimes we hear throwaway comments like, follow your truth or be your authentic self. And it's like, how do I even do that? And so what are the actual tangible steps? Yeah.
Yeah. 100%.
And be patient. It takes time.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of knowing and I always start with knowing your core beliefs, your values first. what are
Yeah.
your values? And then from that point onwards, you can start making decisions about what is important to you. So you're
Yeah.
staying true to your values as well, right? Which I think is
Yeah,
super.
and you can Google that. You can Google values online. You'll come up with 100, and then you circle the ones that resonate, and then you narrow that down, and you narrow that down to maybe your top five, and that's it. That's your first step. It takes half an
Absolutely.
hour or an hour, and you're already on your way.
It's so powerful, isn't it? Just doing that little thing, basically.
So powerful. Yeah.
Gosh, there's just so much.
Can I can I
Yes,
add one more thing about purpose and your mission? I'm clear on mine because I'm older and I've been doing a lot of work and I've been on this journey for a while. But your purpose can be as simple as I want to earn more money. I don't want to do this rubbish job anymore. I just want to work with, blah, blah, blah type of people. It doesn't have to be profound. I feel a lot of people get tripped up on, oh, my purpose needs to be this groundbreaking, profound thing. It can be really like, I don't want to live that life anymore. I want to live a different life.
Yeah, exactly.
That can be the simplest step, and just moving in that direction slowly but surely.
Absolutely.
So you don't want to get tripped up by this thing, purpose and mission.
We know that also that you need money to live, pay your bills,
Yes,
that sort of stuff. It's like just being sensible about that as well, isn't it?
Yes.
Being able to know when you're in that position to do something else or do something else whilst you're doing your job, like experiment with different things. And that's what, it's so important to be able to feel safe as well in your life, isn't it, really?
That's why my program is called Coach to CEO. And the first thing I say to people is, how much money do you need to live?
Yeah, exactly.
And how are we going to make that?
Exactly.
Because you can have the grandest visions, but none of that's going to come to fruition unless we get you feeling safe. And if you look at the Pavlov's hierarchy of needs, fulfilling all the bottom rung with with whatever you're doing. And that might mean a part-time job, that might mean, a side hustle, and that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Eventually you'll get your business, but you have to feel safe. Because if you're not safe, you're not thinking, you're not creative, you're in your flight response. You're just living in fear.
Yeah,
when you feel safe, feel well resourced, you can actually make creative choices, and everything opens up to you then.
It really does. So, it's so powerful. Yeah. I think you're so right. Feeling safe first is the most important thing for sure.
Absolutely, and well resourced. Totally.
And well resourced, 100%. So I'd love to know, from you, how do you find the power within you to manage your mental health, your well-being now and for the future as well?
Yeah. I love this question, and I now, from this place where I've done a lot of work and a lot of healing and learned a lot of things, and I'm older, I would say that I find the power within me by allowing myself to be supported. Allowing myself to be supported by people around me, allowing myself to hire support if that's what I need, allowing myself to just not feel like I have to do it all myself, which was definitely my MO for many years, and probably a massive contributor to my burnout. And now just knowing, we can't do it alone, and that's okay. That's not weakness, that's actually strength. So that's how I find my power within me, to allow myself to be really well supported.
That's beautiful. And you know what? Those connections are what keeps you going as well, supporting each other as well, right? That's what human beings are about. We're social animals, that we need to be able to help each other and support each other. It's horrible being alone, I think, in your own process and your own thoughts as well. And it's kind of being able to reach out for that support that you need. Yeah. So
I think women in general, we set ourselves up for failure by trying to think we can do it all. I should feed my kids, and I should clean the house, and I should also do the laundry, and I should build my successful 7-figure business. No one's doing that. Everyone, as soon as we realize that, hold on, delegation. So I know tools are really useful. So do delegate, delete is such a powerful tool. What can I do? What can I delegate? What can I actually delete? Regularly, daily, weekly, going through that list can just help you just free up time to do the things. Rest is a do, right? You need to rest. Absolutely. You need to exercise. You need to eat well. Sometimes you need to do the work. Sometimes you need to delegate it. So all those things matter.
It's very true. I think it's so important to have just like you said, that self-inquiry, that self-coaching, as you call it as well, And so how could people get in touch with you to kind of talk to you if they were interested in your programs and that sort of stuff as well? How can they get in touch?
Yeah. Well, I've got a lot of content on YouTube. So if you type my name into YouTube, my channel comes up. There's loads of trainings on there, especially if you want to start a business, if you're someone who's thinking, what can I even sell? If you're a CEO or want to be a CEO, be a leader, lots of stuff there. I have a Facebook group called Coaches Who Business. So you can find Coaches Who Business and you'll join my group. More than welcome, and I do trainings in there. And then I have a mastermind that people can join. I run it twice a year, where coaches who want to start their coaching businesses work with me in a mastermind. And I also do one-on-one coaching for CEOs or leaders who really want to build a sustainable business that makes money. So you can have all sorts of business, but I'm going to help you build one that makes money, but doesn't burn you out, doesn't exhaust you. So that's my kind of niche as such. If you want to be a business that makes money without feeling exhausted, I'll help you.
Well, you're niche because you're so successful at it, basically, right?
Yeah, I found the formula.
So Sumeena's the real deal, everyone. Like, you just, she knows her stuff. And
it's possible.
Help you out. Yeah, absolutely.
Totally
100%.
possible.
100%.
Totally possible.
No, I've had the most beautiful, I've always had beautiful conversation with you, to be fair.
We have a lot of fun.
Podcast. So thank you so much for joining me on the Proud in You podcast, Sumeena. It's been wonderful to speak to you.
Yeah, Mamta, I have to say you definitely are one of my people that I admire. Yeah, but the women in my life that I admire, who's really we've been together for so many years, since like the age of 16, and seeing both of us go through our stumbles and our journey and be brave and also help each other along the way is, definitely someone who's contributed massively to everything that I'm doing.
Thank you.
Now, so
I really appreciate that. Yeah, we definitely have our stories to tell, right? And be able to impart that knowledge to other people. So yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you so much, Sumeena.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.